It was the end of the month, and Layla had barely enough in her wallet to make it through the rest of Ramadan. As a single mother, every penny mattered, and the weight of that responsibility felt especially heavy today. She was at the local grocery store trying to stretch her budget to feed herself and her 5-year-old daughter, Maya. Maya, full of energy and curiosity, was running up and down the aisles, grabbing snacks off the shelves and asking for things Layla simply couldn't afford. The little girl was already tired, having spent the day at preschool, and Layla's patience was starting to wear thin. She had hoped this trip would be quick and easy, but it was anything but. Layla pushed the cart to the checkout, her hands full with bags and a tired, fussy child. The items on the conveyor belt were modest, some vegetables, rice, bread, and a few cans of beans. It wasn't much, but it was all she could afford. When the cashier totaled her bill, Layla's heart sank. The total was $10 more than she had. She hesitated, glancing nervously at Maya, who was now tugging at her shirt, demanding a treat. Layla opened her wallet, hoping against hope there was some spare change she had missed earlier. But it was empty. Her stomach churned. "Is there anything I can take off?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The cashier, a young woman with sympathetic eyes, gave her a polite but apologetic look. "I'm sorry, but we don't accept partial payments. You can leave some items behind if you'd like." Layla could feel the heat rising in her face. She didn't want to make a scene, but she could already see the disapproving stares of the people behind her. She tried to smile through the embarrassment, but the guilt was overwhelming. Maya tugged harder at her sleeve, and then, just as Layla was about to reach for a few items to return, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "I've got this." Layla's head snapped up, her eyes widening in disbelief. Standing right in front of her, looking calm and kind, was none other than Keanu Reeves. "Keanu Reeves?" she asked, her voice catching in her throat. She couldn't believe it. He was just standing there in a simple jacket, looking every bit the everyday guy, with a kind smile on his face. Keanu nodded with a warm smile. "Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll pay for your groceries." Layla blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "But I don't know if I can—" "No, really," he said, holding up a hand. "It's no problem. I've been where you are. Let me help." Layla couldn't believe her ears. The superstar, the man she had only ever seen on the big screen, was offering to help her. A single mother struggling to make ends meet. This couldn't be real. She looked over at the cashier, who seemed just as stunned, and then back at Maya, who was staring at Keanu with wide, curious eyes. Layla didn't know what to do or say. Her instinct was to refuse, to say no because she didn't want to be a burden. But at that moment her mind raced. What if this could be a sign, a little moment of hope in the middle of all her struggles? You don't have to do this," Layla stammered, still in shock, but Keanu just smiled, soft and reassuring. "It's really no trouble. I believe in helping where I can. Ramadan is about kindness, right?" The words hit her like a ton of bricks. Her faith, her struggles, everything felt like it was falling into place. A star, one of the most humble and beloved figures in Hollywood, was offering her something simple: help. And it wasn't just about the money. It was a reminder that kindness could come from the most unexpected places. Layla paused for a moment, looking at her daughter, and then at Keanu. A mixture of relief and disbelief washed over her. Maybe this was exactly what she needed, someone to remind her that there was still good in the world. Before she could say another word, Keanu had already swiped his card, covering the entire bill. As the cashier handed over the receipt, Keanu gave Layla a friendly nod. "Take care of yourself and remember, we're all in this together." As Keanu turned to leave, Layla stood there, stunned. Maya looked up at her, confused but calm now. Layla could barely process what had just happened. Was this real? Had she just been helped by one of the most famous men in the world? She turned to the cashier, still trying to absorb everything. The cashier smiled softly. "I've never seen anything like that before." "Me neither," Layla muttered, still in shock. And as she gathered her bags and walked out of the store with Maya, she realized that this small, unexpected act of kindness had made her believe in something she hadn't in a long time: hope. But before she left the parking lot, Layla took a deep breath, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Ramadan, she whispered to herself. Maybe it's not about what we have, but what we give. Before we go further, if you enjoyed this moment, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more of Layla's journey. You won't believe what happens next. As Layla sat in the car, her hands tightly gripping the steering wheel, her thoughts drifted back to a time before everything changed. A time when life seemed easier, when she wasn't carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, when she wasn't a single mother. Layla had once been married to Adam, a man who, at the time, felt like her perfect match. They had met in college, both studying business, and quickly became inseparable. Adam was kind, thoughtful, and had a way of making her laugh even on the hardest days. Together, they built a life, starting with their cozy little apartment in the heart of the city, and then moving into a house in the suburbs when Layla found out she was pregnant with Maya. At first, parenthood was everything they had hoped for. The moment Maya was born, Layla knew her life would never be the same. She remembered the first time she held her daughter in her arms, feeling the overwhelming wave of love and responsibility that came with being a mother. Adam had been right by her side, doting on Maya, always eager to help. But things had slowly started to unravel. Adam, who had been a devoted husband and father, began to change. His work started demanding more of his time, and he became distant. Layla couldn't understand it at first. Why was he withdrawing from them, from her, when they were supposed to be building a family together? The more time passed, the more Layla found herself juggling motherhood alone, even when Adam was home. She tried to talk to him, to find out what was wrong, but he would always brush her off, telling her it was just a phase, that things would get better. Then, one night, Adam came home late, looking tired and anxious. He sat Layla down on the couch, his face a mixture of sadness and guilt. "I've been thinking," he started, his voice shaking slightly. "I think it's best if I leave." Layla's heart sank. "What do you mean, leave?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not happy. I don't think I can be the man you need me to be anymore," Adam confessed, his eyes filled with sorrow. "I need space to figure things out, Layla. I'm sorry." The words hit Layla like a punch to the gut. She couldn't breathe, couldn't process what was happening. She had never imagined this would be her reality, not after everything. They had been through together. The divorce came soon after, quick and painful, with Adam leaving the house for good. Layla was left to pick up the pieces. She didn't have the luxury of time to grieve, not with Maya to care for. She had to move on, for her daughter's sake, even if it meant swallowing her pride and trying to make things work as a single mother. The months that followed were a blur. Layla found herself working long hours at a local coffee shop to make ends meet. There were no luxuries, no time for herself. She didn't even have the energy to keep in touch with her friends, as the overwhelming responsibility of being both mother and father to Maya consumed her. And now here she was, struggling to pay for groceries at the end of Ramadan, trying her best to hold it all together. Layla had always been independent, proud of her ability to take care of herself and her daughter. But sometimes it felt like the world was pressing in from all sides, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep up the charade that everything was fine. Ramadan had been especially hard this year. It was supposed to be a time for spiritual reflection and growth, but for Layla it felt like another reminder of what she didn't have. While others in the community were able to celebrate with family and friends, Layla was often alone with Maya. Their iftar dinners were small, and, while she tried to make them meaningful, the isolation was hard to bear. The months of fasting, the prayers, and the quiet moments of reflection felt bittersweet, especially when she saw families together laughing and sharing meals. But Maya always made it worth it. Layla thought about her daughter's bright eyes, the way she smiled at the simplest things, and how her presence brought joy to every corner of their tiny apartment. It was Maya's laugh that kept Layla going. Her sweet, innocent laughter was a reminder that there was still good in the world, even if everything else felt like it was falling apart. As they pulled into the driveway, Layla looked over at her daughter, who had been unusually quiet since the grocery store incident. Maya was now staring out the window, her small fingers tracing the patterns on the glass. "Hey, sweetie," Layla said softly. breaking the silence. "Are you okay?" Maya turned to her, her big brown eyes wide. "Mom, who was that man, the one who helped us?" Layla paused, taking a deep breath. She hadn't yet explained to Maya who Keanu Reeves was. What do you say to a 5-year-old who's just met a movie star in the middle of a grocery store? But somehow, in that moment, it didn't matter. What mattered was the kindness that had been shown to them, something she wanted her daughter to always remember. "He's someone who showed kindness when we needed it the most," Layla said, her voice soft but filled with meaning. "Sometimes people just help because they want to make the world a better place. We should always remember that." Maya nodded, her lips curling into a smile. "He was nice. He made you happy." Layla's heart melted. She smiled back at her daughter, knowing that even in their hardest moments there was still light, and in that light they could find hope again. As she gathered her things and helped Maya out of the car, Layla couldn't shake the thought of Keanu's words from the grocery store. "Ramadan is about kindness." She repeated them quietly to herself, a small but powerful reminder that no matter how difficult life could be, there was always room for love and generosity, and maybe, just maybe, kindness was the very thing that could heal the wounds she had been carrying for so long. If you're enjoying Layla's journey, don't forget to subscribe and join us as the story continues. What do you think will happen next? The days after their encounter with Keanu Reeves felt like a dream to Layla. It was a rare, bright spot in her otherwise ordinary life. But as time passed, reality set back in. The bills continued to pile up. Maya's constant need for attention grew, and Layla couldn't escape the pressure of her responsibilities. The unexpected kindness she had received in the grocery store remained with her, but it wasn't enough to make everything else easier. Layla had returned to work the next day, determined to put the encounter behind her. She needed to focus on what was in front of her, the long shifts, the bills, and most importantly, making sure Maya was well taken care of. The last thing she needed was to dwell on a celebrity's fleeting generosity. But no matter how hard she tried to bury the memory, it wouldn't leave her. Every time she glanced at her phone, she couldn't help but wonder if it was just a random act of kindness or something more. Could Keanu have meant something deeper by helping her, or was it just a simple good deed he did out of the goodness of his heart? As the days went on, Layla found herself thinking about it more than she wanted to admit. The thought kept gnawing at her, especially when she would pass by her small apartment's worn-out kitchen table or stare at Maya's drawings taped to the fridge. She couldn't ignore the fact that her life hadn't changed much. The bills were still looming. The constant juggling of her job and responsibilities still felt overwhelming, and the loneliness still tugged at her heart. But there was something else that started to grow, something Layla couldn't put into words. It was a small spark of hope that flickered inside her every time she thought of Keanu's smile or the kindness he had shown without hesitation. One afternoon, while Layla was working at the cafe, she received a call from Maya's preschool. Her heart dropped. She never liked receiving calls during work hours. She quickly excused herself from the counter, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. "Maya is fine," the preschool director said, her voice warm but serious. "But there's something we need to discuss. We've noticed some changes in her behavior recently. She's withdrawn, not participating in class like she used to. We just want to make sure everything's okay at home." Layla's stomach tightened. She knew Maya had been struggling lately, but she hadn't realized how much it was affecting her at school. I'll try to talk to her," Layla said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for letting me know." After hanging up, Layla sat back in her chair, feeling like she had just been hit with another wave of responsibility. She'd been so focused on keeping everything afloat that she hadn't noticed the signs that Maya was carrying her own burdens. The last few months had been tough on them both, and Layla had been so caught up in surviving, in just getting through each day, that she hadn't stopped to truly see how Maya was coping. That evening, as they sat down for dinner, Layla watched her daughter closely. Maya picked at her food, her little fingers absent-mindedly pushing rice around her plate. It was a stark contrast to the little girl who had once eagerly devoured everything in sight, always asking for more. "Maya, sweetie," Layla began gently, trying to sound casual, but with a tinge of concern in her voice. How's school? Going? Are you making friends? Maya glanced up at her, her large brown eyes sadder than usual. I miss Daddy, she said, her voice small and fragile. The words hit Layla hard and her heart twisted. She had known Maya missed Adam, but hearing it out loud felt like a punch. Layla had tried her best to shield Maya from the worst of the divorce, but how could she protect her from the emotional scars it left behind? I miss him too, baby, Layla said softly, reaching across the table to hold her daughter's hand. But you know, we're going to be okay. We have each other. Maya nodded, but didn't seem convinced. Layla swallowed, hard, her own heart breaking for the little girl who had already been through so much in her short life. The rest of the evening was quiet. Maya went to bed early, her small body curling up in the sheets, and Layla remained at the kitchen table, her thoughts swirling. The truth was, Layla had been so focused on surviving that she hadn't fully addressed the toll the divorce had taken. It's on Maya. She had been so determined to hold everything together that she hadn't noticed how much her daughter was suffering silently. But Layla knew that if she didn't find a way to fix this, the cracks in their little family would continue to grow. She couldn't let Maya keep carrying this burden on her own. The next day, after dropping Maya off at school, Layla made a decision. She was going to reach out for help. Not just the typical help she got from friends or family, but something more. She would reach out to the community, to people who might have experienced what she was going through, single mothers, people who knew the weight of trying to make everything work on your own. She was going to seek out a support group, even if it meant putting herself out there in ways she hadn't before, and maybe, just maybe, she would look into Keanu's words again. Was there a reason his kindness had come at the right moment? Could it be a sign that there was more to the world than just getting by? Layla had spent so long thinking she had to face everything alone, but now she realized it was time to open up, to accept the help that had been given to her, and to learn how to help herself and her daughter. It was time to stop pretending. She had all the answers. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it one step at a time. What do you think will happen as Layla reaches out for help? How will Maya's struggles affect their journey? Be sure to subscribe and follow their story. This journey of growth, healing, and hope is just beginning. The decision to reach out for help wasn't an easy one for Layla. She had always been fiercely independent, convinced that she could manage everything on her own. But the more she thought about her conversation with the preschool director, the more she realized that the weight of everything, raising Maya alone, managing finances and keeping up appearances, was too much for her to handle in isolation. That afternoon, after dropping Maya off at school, Layla took a deep breath and sat down in front of her laptop. She hesitated for a moment, unsure of where to begin. But then, remembering her recent feelings of hopelessness and the kindness that had been shown to her by Keanu, she typed "single mother support groups" into the search bar. Dozens of links popped up. Some were local, some were online, and some even seemed to promise more personal one-on-one mentorship. Layla clicked on a few, reading through descriptions of services and testimonials. Each group seemed to offer the same thing: community. And as she read more, the word started to resonate with her. Community. It was something she hadn't truly allowed herself to lean on in a long time. She finally clicked on one that seemed promising: an online support group for single mothers struggling during Ramadan. It wasn't just about finances or raising children on her own. It was about emotional support, a safe space for women like her to express their struggles and find strength in each other. With a sigh, Layla clicked the Join button. She was accepted almost immediately and was invited to a private forum. She was amazed by the outpouring of support already in the group. It was filled with women from all walks of life, sharing stories, offering advice, and offering to help one another. It felt like she had just found a lifeline, and for the first time in a long while, Layla allowed herself to feel something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. Later that evening, as Layla sat down for iftar with Maya, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing. She had made a choice to seek out the support she needed, and it was already starting to shift her perspective. Even if she wasn't sure where the journey would lead, she had taken a step forward. Maya, on the other hand, seemed to have a different Energy that evening. She was still quiet at the dinner table, but she had more of a sparkle in her eye than usual. There was something about the atmosphere that seemed lighter, a little less tense. Layla smiled, watching Maya as she took small bites of her food. "Maya, sweetheart," Layla began gently, "do you want to tell me about your day at school? You've been so quiet lately." Maya hesitated for a moment, her fork hovering above her plate. "I'm just thinking, Mom," she said softly. Layla's heart softened. "Thinking about what?" Maya looked up at her, her eyes wide with curiosity. "About the man at the store. He was really nice. Why did he help us?" The question caught Layla by surprise. "He helped us because he saw that we needed it," Layla replied. "Sometimes people just help because they can. It's about showing kindness to others, no matter who they are." Maya nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "I think I want to help people too, Mommy, like the man." Layla's heart swelled with emotion. "That's very sweet, sweetie. You're already helping me just by being you." That night, as Layla sat at her desk, thinking about her new connection to the support group, the doorbell rang. Startled, she got up to answer it. When she opened the door, she found a package sitting on the doorstep. It was a small nondescript box with no return address. Layla picked it up, confused. She brought it inside, placing it on the kitchen table. She stared at it for a few moments before she opened it carefully, her fingers trembling slightly. Inside, there was a card written in neat handwriting. "You are not alone. Keep going. You are doing great." Beneath the card was a small envelope filled with cash, more than enough to cover the grocery bill she had struggled with days before. Layla's breath caught in her throat as she read the note again. She immediately recognized Keanu's signature on the envelope. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything. Layla's mind raced. Was this a second act of kindness from Keanu? Or perhaps it was something even deeper, a sign that there were people who cared, that there were still good-hearted souls in the world willing to lend a hand. She hadn't expected this. She never thought someone like him would be thinking of her, let alone sending a personal gift, but in that moment, Layla understood something important. This act wasn't just about the money or the groceries. It was a reminder that kindness could be a bridge to healing, and that there was always a way forward, even in the darkest of times. As Layla put the money aside and carefully placed the card in a drawer for safekeeping, she felt a newfound sense of direction. She wasn't alone in this journey. There was help out there, and she had taken a crucial step by opening up. More than that, she realized that kindness, no matter how small or how grand, had the power to change the course of someone's life. The next day, Layla went into the support group and shared her story with others for the first time. The responses were overwhelmingly positive. Women reached out, offering words of encouragement and advice, sharing their own struggles and triumphs. The bond they formed was immediate, and Layla felt an incredible weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't facing this struggle alone, and in that moment she knew this was just the beginning of something important. Whatever lay ahead, she had a community now. She had hope, and she had the strength to keep moving forward. How will Layla's new path of support and kindness shape her future? Will this unexpected gift from Keanu change her life forever? Subscribe. Now to continue following her journey. More surprises and lessons await. The days following Layla's unexpected gift from Keanu felt like a whirlwind. She had found the support group, made connections, and slowly started to feel a shift within herself. Every conversation in the group seemed to bring her closer to a new version of herself, a version that was less about surviving and more about thriving. She no longer felt completely isolated in her struggles. There were women who understood her, women who were going through similar challenges, and who had found strength in each other. Layla started to believe that things could be different for her and Maya. But just when Layla thought life was finally offering her a break, something happened that would turn everything upside down again. It was late one afternoon when Layla received an unexpected call. She was sitting at her kitchen table, sipping on a cup of tea after having put Maya to bed, when her phone rang. The name on the screen made her stomach drop. It was Adam, Maya's father. Layla hadn't spoken to him in months, ever since their divorce had been finalized. Their relationship had been strained, and Layla had always tried to protect Maya from the fallout of their broken marriage. Adam had been in and out of Maya's life, but lately Layla had done her best to shield their daughter from the emotional roller coaster that came with Adam's inconsistent presence. With a hesitant breath, Layla answered the call. "Hello," she said, trying to mask the nervousness in her voice. "Layla," Adam's voice came through the phone, sounding more serious than she expected. "We need to talk." Her heart skipped a beat. "About what?" I've been thinking a lot lately," Adam continued, his voice shaky. "And I need to tell you something. It's important." Layla's mind raced. What could he possibly need to say now? After everything that had happened, after all the hurt they had endured, why was he reaching out? But despite the questions swirling in her head, she knew she had to listen. "Okay," Layla said, her voice tight. "What is it?" I'm moving to another city," Adam said slowly. "I've accepted a new job offer. It's a big opportunity, and I think it's the right thing for me, but I want to make sure Maya is okay with it. I want to know if she's all right with me being away." Layla's breath caught in her throat. She could feel her world shifting once again, this time in a direction she hadn't anticipated. She had always known there was a chance that Adam might move away, but hearing him say it aloud felt like a punch to the gut. "Are you serious?" Layla's voice wavered. "After everything, after all this time, you want to talk to her about moving away now?" Adam's voice softened. "I know it sounds selfish, but I want to make sure I do right by her. I've been a bad father, Layla. I know I have. I wasn't there when she needed me most, and I know I've messed up. But I'm trying to do better. I just need to know if Maya will be okay." Layla felt a wave of emotion wash over her, anger, frustration, but also a strange sense of relief. For so long she had been the one carrying all the weight, and now Adam was acknowledging his part in it. But the truth of the matter was, Maya's well-being had always been her top priority. I think you need to talk to Maya about it yourself," Layla said, her voice firm. "She deserves to hear it from you." The conversation ended on a somber note. Layla's head was spinning, her emotions running wild. She couldn't believe it. Adam was leaving. And while part of her felt relief that he was finally taking responsibility, part of her also felt the sting of his absence. He had been a part of Maya's life, even if he wasn't always present, but now he would be gone for good, and that left Layla to pick up the pieces once more. Later that evening, as Layla sat on the couch, lost in thought, Maya wandered into the room, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, I had a bad dream," she whispered, climbing into her lap. Layla pulled her daughter close, her heart aching. She didn't know how to explain what had just happened. Maya deserved to be happy and secure, and yet Layla couldn't promise her that anymore. "Maya," Layla whispered, her voice barely audible, "I know you miss Daddy, but we're okay. We always will be because we have each other." Maya nodded, but Layla could see the worry in her eyes. The emotional weight that had been brewing for months seemed to catch up with her all at once. How could she explain to her daughter that her father would be leaving? And how could she promise Maya that everything would be okay when she didn't know herself? The next morning, Layla took a deep breath and decided to face the situation head-on. She sat down with Maya over breakfast, holding her small hands in hers. "Sweetheart, I want to talk to you about something important," Layla began, her voice soft but steady. "Daddy is going to be moving to a new city. He's going to be far away, but that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. You're still going to see him sometimes, but it won't be as often." Maya's eyes welled up with tears. "But I don't want him to go," she said, her voice cracking. Layla hugged her tightly, fighting back her own tears. "I know, baby, I know. But no matter what, we'll always be a family, and I'll always be here for you." In that moment, Layla realized something important. Life was unpredictable, full of twists and turns. But as long as she and Maya had each other, they could face anything. Even when it felt like the world was falling apart, there was always room for hope and healing. And she wasn't alone anymore, not with the support of the women in her group, not with the kindness she had received from Keanu, and certainly not with her daughter by her side. Will Layla and Maya be able to heal from Adam's departure? How will their new journey of growth continue? Stay tuned to see how Layla faces this challenge and what comes next in her and Maya's story. Days passed, and Layla found herself navigating a delicate balance between her responsibilities as a mother and the emotional weight of Adam's departure. Maya, though young, seemed to sense the shift. She was quieter than usual, asking more questions about her father and looking up at Layla with wide, curious eyes. The emotional toll of Adam's absence was something that neither of them could ignore, but Layla was determined not to let it break them. As she spent her days reflecting on their journey, she realized just how much she had grown. In the past, she might have wallowed in grief, clinging to the belief that her family's structure had to remain whole to be happy. But now Layla understood something crucial. Her family wasn't defined by the number of people in it. It was defined by love, resilience, and the commitment to move forward together. One evening, after Maya had fallen asleep, Layla sat by the window, staring out into the soft night. The city was quiet, the air crisp with the promise of spring. She thought about all that had happened in the past few months, the struggles, the moments of doubt, the unexpected kindness from Keanu, and the support she had found in the single mothers group. All of it had shaped her in ways she hadn't anticipated. She picked up her phone, scrolling through the messages in the support group. Each post, each word of encouragement, felt like a lifeline. It wasn't just the advice they offered, it was the camaraderie, the understanding. Layla had begun to believe again that there was power in vulnerability, in allowing others to see her pain, and in allowing herself to lean on them for support. Her fingers hovered over the screen as she prepared to send her own message to the group. It had been a while since she had shared her feelings, but tonight she felt the urge to open up. "Hey everyone, it's been a while, but I just wanted to share something important. It's been tough with Adam leaving. I won't lie, I've had moments where I've felt lost. But I've also realized that this journey is mine and Maya's. I know it's not going to be easy, but I have to trust that we will make it through and that we're stronger than I ever thought. I'm grateful for each of you and for the support you've given me. I feel more ready than ever to take the next step, even when I'm unsure of what that looks like. Thank you for being my community. I couldn't do this without you." She sent the message, her heart feeling lighter as she did. It wasn't a huge leap, but it was progress. She was taking ownership of her own healing, and that felt empowering. The next morning, Layla decided to take Maya on a small adventure, a trip to the local park. The weather had turned, the skies bright and inviting, and Maya loved playing outdoors. As they arrived, Layla felt a sense of peace settle over her. It wasn't the grand gesture she had always imagined, but moments like these, the simple ones, were what really mattered. Maya ran ahead, giggling as she chased after a butterfly, her small feet carrying her across the grass with carefree abandon. Layla smiled, watching her daughter's joy, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to truly relax. In this moment, Maya was happy, and Layla was too. There were no worries about Adam or the past. There was only the present. As they sat together on a park bench, Layla glanced at Maya, who was still smiling from ear to ear as she ran around the playground. Layla thought back to the gift from Keanu, the kindness he had shown them. She had never expected anything like that, but it had meant the world to her, not just because of the financial help, but because it had been a reminder that even in the darkest times, there were people out there who cared. That afternoon, Layla took Maya to a small cafe near the park. As they sat down with their hot chocolate, Maya looked up at her, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Mommy, do you think Daddy will ever come back?" Maya asked softly, stirring her drink absent-mindedly. Layla paused, her heart aching. She had known this question would come. "Sweetheart, I don't know," Layla answered gently, "but what I do know is that we have each other. And that's all that really matters right now." Maya nodded thoughtfully, as though absorbing her words, and smiled up at her. "Yeah, we're a team, right?" Layla's heart swelled. "Yes, we are." Later that evening, as Layla put Maya to bed, she lingered for a few extra moments, brushing her daughter's hair out of her face and kissing her forehead. Maya had drifted off to sleep, her tiny hand clutching a stuffed animal tightly. But Layla couldn't shake the overwhelming sense of gratitude she felt. Despite all the hardships, despite the uncertainties, Layla had made it through the storm, and so had Maya. As she turned off the lights and left the room, Layla felt a shift inside herself. The weight she had carried for so long had lessened, not because the challenges were gone, but because she had learned to carry it differently. She had learned to lean on others when necessary, to allow herself to be vulnerable, and most importantly, to trust that she and Maya could handle whatever came their way. That night, as Layla sat down to reflect on everything she had been through, she realized that the most important lesson she had learned wasn't about surviving alone or about pretending to have it all together. It was about accepting help when it was offered, about understanding that love and support could come from unexpected places, and that she didn't have to go through life's struggles alone. For the first time in a long time, Layla felt truly at peace. She had survived the hardest part, and now with a strong community, a renewed sense of purpose and a little girl by her side, she was ready for whatever came next. Would you ever have expected Keanu's kindness to have such an impact on Layla's life? How would you react if you were in her shoes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if you've enjoyed this story, be sure to share it with friends and family. It had been several weeks since Layla had received Keanu's unexpected generosity, and although the initial shock had worn off, the impact it had on her life was still deeply felt. The money, the connections, and the sense of human kindness had all added up to something that changed her perspective on life. But perhaps the most significant change had been within herself. As the days unfolded, Layla found herself learning to balance the complexity of being a single mother while building a new life for herself and Maya. It wasn't perfect, and there were still hard days when the absence of Adam loomed larger than she'd like to admit. But she had come to accept that life wasn't meant to be perfect. It was meant to be lived fully, even with the challenges. One Saturday afternoon, Layla and Maya decided to attend a community event at the local library, a small gathering for single parents and their children. It wasn't something Layla had ever considered before, but after her experience with the support group, she had come to realize that being part of a community wasn't just about sharing struggles. It was also about celebrating small victories, sharing joy, and creating new memories together. As they arrived, Layla felt a slight flutter of nerves. She wasn't sure what to expect from this event, or if she would even feel comfortable mingling with strangers. But Maya's excited chatter, as she bounced around, made it all feel less intimidating. "Mommy, look, there's a face-painting booth," Maya exclaimed, tugging at Layla's hand. Layla smiled, her heart swelling with affection for her daughter. "Go ahead, honey, I'll be right here watching." Maya dashed off toward the booth, and Layla took a seat nearby. As she watched her daughter's excitement, she couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. The past year had been a whirlwind of ups and downs, but in this moment, it felt like everything was exactly where it needed to be. Soon, Layla's phone buzzed, in her pocket, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from the support group. "Hey Layla, I saw something that might interest you. There's a new community grant for single mothers that could help you with some of your expenses. I thought you might want to check it out." Layla's heart skipped a beat. After everything she'd been through, there were still opportunities out there. People still cared enough to offer a helping hand. The thought that there were organizations and individuals like the ones she had met through the group who were actively looking out for her brought a sense of hope that she hadn't realized she'd been missing. Feeling encouraged, Layla sent a quick reply thanking the woman who had shared the information and promising to follow up. She tucked her phone back into her bag and watched as Maya sat down at a table with a new friend she had made, showing off her butterfly face paint with pride. The simple joy on Maya's face was enough to remind Layla of everything that mattered: her daughter, their bond, and their journey together. As the event continued, Layla began to mingle, exchanging stories with other parents, laughing at shared experiences, and even gaining some new perspectives on how to balance work, motherhood, and personal time. For the first time in a long time, Layla felt like she was part of something bigger than herself. The sense of community, of being understood and supported, was a gift she hadn't realized she needed so desperately. By the end of the afternoon, Layla and Maya were both exhausted but happy. On the way home, Maya's voice echoed from the back seat, filled with excitement about all the new friends she had made. Layla smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She didn't have all the answers, and the future was still uncertain. But she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone in this anymore. As they pulled into their driveway, Layla took a deep breath, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about Keanu's kindness, about the support group, and about all the people who had offered help along the way. And, as she looked at Maya sleeping soundly in her car seat, Layla realized that life was about more than just surviving. It was about growing, learning, and moving forward with love, one step at a time. What do you think Layla's future holds? What lessons do you think she's learned along the way? If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments and share it with others who might need a dose of hope today. The days following the community event passed by in a blur, and as much as Layla had been looking for stability in her life, there was something beautiful about the uncertainty of it all. It was the uncertainty that had pushed her to grow. And now, with a new sense of purpose and optimism, Layla was ready to embrace whatever came next. One evening, after putting Maya to bed, Layla sat at the kitchen table, working on a few small projects. She had been meaning to look into the community grant the support group member had mentioned. Her fingers hovered over her laptop as she thought about the possibilities. The grant could provide some much-needed financial relief. With Maya growing up so fast, Layla wanted to be sure they had a future built on stability. She opened a browser window and began to fill out the application. As she typed, she realized how much she had changed in the past few months. Where once she had felt overwhelmed by the constant struggle of raising a child on her own, she now felt like a woman who was capable of navigating life's challenges with purpose. She had learned to seek out help when needed, to lean into the support of others, and to trust that good things would come when she kept pushing forward. The process wasn't as complicated as she had imagined. She simply had to outline her current situation, her goals, and how the grant would help her provide a better future for herself and Maya. The more she filled out the forms, the more Layla felt the weight of her journey lifting. She wasn't just trying to survive anymore. She was planning for a future, and that was a powerful shift. After submitting the application, Layla closed her laptop and sat back in her chair. She allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. She wasn't sure what the outcome would be, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that she had taken the step. She had put herself out there, and she was actively working to build a better life for herself and Maya. The next day, Layla received a call from an unfamiliar number. Her heart raced as she answered. "Hello?" she said, trying to steady her voice. "Hi, is this Layla?" a kind voice asked. "Yes, this is she," Layla replied, wondering who it could be. "This is Rachel from the Community Grant Program," the voice said. "I just wanted to let you know that we've reviewed your application, and we'd love to help you. Your story really resonated with us, and we believe you're doing incredible work with your daughter. We're awarding you the grant, and we'd love to work with you on how to best use it for your goals." Layla was speechless. It was like a dream come true. She had hoped for this, but hearing it out loud made it feel all the more real. "Oh my God, thank you so much," she said, her voice cracking. "I can't believe this. Of course, we're so happy to support you. We'll send over the details soon, and we're here if you need anything." As Layla hung up the phone, tears of joy welled in her eyes. She couldn't help but think back to the dark days, when it felt like nothing was going right, when she questioned whether she could keep going. This moment, this unexpected piece of good news, felt like the universe's way of saying that everything she had gone through was worth it. And for the first time in a long time, Layla truly believed that things were going to be okay. Later that evening, as she tucked Maya into bed, Layla smiled down at her daughter. "Guess what, sweetie?" she said, her heart full of hope. "We're going to be okay. Everything is going to be just fine." Maya looked up at her with wide eyes. "What do you mean, Mommy?" Layla sat beside her, gently brushing Maya's hair away from her face. "We're going to get some help so we can have a better future. We're going to have more stability, more chances to do fun things, and we're going to keep growing. Together, I promise you." Maya smiled, already half asleep. "That sounds great, Mommy." Layla kissed her forehead and whispered, "It is, sweetie. It is." The next few months passed in a blur of small victories and quiet moments of joy. The grant gave Layla the financial breathing room she needed to focus on things that had always seemed out of reach, like finding a more stable job that offered more hours, or even starting a small savings account for the future. But it wasn't just the money. It was the sense of security that came with it, knowing she didn't have to struggle every single day to make ends meet. Maya continued to thrive as well. Layla enrolled her in a preschool program where she began to make new friends and develop her confidence. Every day, Layla was amazed by how quickly Maya was growing and changing, and it reminded her of the incredible resilience that both of them shared. Keanu's act of kindness had not only made a huge impact in Layla's life, but had also set a chain of events into motion that had changed her entire perspective. She found herself reaching out to others more, attending more community events, and opening up to new friendships. Life was still challenging, of course, but Layla had learned how to find hope in the midst of the struggles. As Layla looked ahead, she knew that her journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges, and there would always be moments of doubt. But she had learned something invaluable. No matter how tough things got, she wasn't in this alone. She had a community, she had her daughter, and she had the strength to keep moving forward. What's next for Layla and Maya? How do you think they'll continue to navigate their new life together? Share your thoughts and join the conversation in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to share it with others who might need a little hope today. Layla stood at the edge of the park, watching Maya play with a group of new friends. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a soft golden glow over the playground. Layla had always loved this time of day, when everything felt calm and peaceful, like the world was taking a breath before the evening rush. Over the past few months, things had gradually fallen into place. Layla had secured a new job at a local marketing agency, one that offered her a more flexible schedule and the opportunity to work from home some days. This allowed her to spend more time with Maya and still bring in a steady income. It was far from perfect, but it was progress, and that was something she hadn't always been able to say. There were still days when she struggled, days when the weight of everything seemed to come crashing down, and she doubted herself. The loneliness of being a single parent sometimes felt like a heavy cloak she couldn't shake off, but those moments were becoming fewer and farther between. With the help of her support group and the sense of hope Keanu's generosity had sparked, she had learned to embrace the uncertainty and find strength in the journey. "Maya, come on, it's getting late," Layla called out, waving her daughter over. Maya reluctantly left her new friends behind and ran over, her face flushed with excitement. "Mommy, can we come back tomorrow?" Layla smiled and nodded. "Of course, sweetie. We can come back anytime you want, but now it's time to head home and get ready for dinner." As they walked back to the car, Layla's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, expecting a text from her support group, but instead it was a message from an unfamiliar number. "Hello, Layla. This is Keanu. I hope you and Maya are doing well. I just wanted to check in and see how things have been going since we last spoke. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out." Layla's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't heard from Keanu since that unforgettable day at the grocery store. His kindness had changed her life in ways she couldn't fully explain, and to hear from him again was a reminder that good things were still happening. She smiled and quickly typed a response. "Hi Keanu, thank you so much for checking in. We're doing well. Maya is growing up so fast and things are slowly coming together. I'm really grateful for everything you did for us. You truly made a difference." The message wasn't just a thank you, it was a reflection of how far she had come. She didn't need anything else from him. The kindness he had shown her had given her the strength to push forward, and now she was standing on her own 2 feet. Few minutes later, Keanu replied, "I'm so glad to hear that. You and Maya are incredible, and I believe in both of you. Take care and keep moving forward. I'll always be rooting for you." As Layla read his words, she felt a sense of closure, a sense that she had come full circle. His kindness had opened A door, but she had walked through it herself, and now the future was wide open. Later that evening, as they settled into their cozy apartment, Layla felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Maya was tucked into bed, already asleep with a content smile on her face. Layla sat on the couch, sipping a cup of tea, and thought about everything that had led her here. There were still obstacles ahead. Life wasn't perfect. But now, with her job, her community, and her unwavering love for Maya, Layla felt ready for whatever the future held. She knew she could handle anything that came her way, because she had learned that she didn't have to do it alone. The kindness of others, the support of her community, and her own inner strength had brought her this far, and they would carry her forward. The next day, Layla woke up early, as usual, to prepare breakfast for Maya. The little girl was still asleep, her soft breaths filling the room with a sense of peace. Layla paused for a moment to reflect on how far they had come, how much had changed in such a short time. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Layla was at peace with it. She had no idea where her path would lead, but she was no longer afraid. She had a community, a new sense of purpose, and most importantly, the love of her daughter. That was all she needed. What do you think Layla's next chapter will look like? Do you think she'll face more challenges? Or will she continue to thrive in her new life? Share your thoughts and join the conversation in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to share it with others who could use a little inspiration. Months passed since that message from Keanu, and Layla's life had changed in ways she never imagined. There were still challenges, yes, moments, when she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. But those moments weren't as frequent, and they no longer defined her. Layla had learned how to face life's uncertainties with courage, knowing that she was stronger than she had ever given herself credit for. Maya had just turned 6, and Layla marveled at how quickly the time had passed. It felt like just yesterday that she was holding her daughter in her arms, unsure of how she would make it through the next day. But now Maya was a little girl full of laughter, joy, and curiosity. She had blossomed into someone who made friends easily and approached the world with a sense of wonder, just like Layla had always hoped. On this particular morning, Layla stood in the kitchen, sipping her coffee as she looked out of the window. The sun had risen early, casting its golden glow across the city. It felt like the perfect day for a new beginning, one more opportunity to move forward and continue making progress in her life. But something in the air felt different today. Maybe it was the reminder of how much had changed, or perhaps it was the peace that had settled in her heart after all these months of uncertainty. Layla knew that things weren't perfect, but that was okay. She had come to realize that perfection was an illusion. Life was about the journey, the small moments that added up to something greater. Just then, Maya came running into the kitchen, her wild curls bouncing with each step. "Mommy, look what I made at school," she exclaimed, holding up a small paper flower in her hand. Layla smiled as she took the flower, admiring Maya's artwork. "It's beautiful, sweetie. I'll put it on the fridge, okay?" Maya nodded enthusiastically. "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be just like you." Layla's heart swelled with emotion. "What do you mean?" she asked, kneeling down to meet her daughter's gaze. "You're strong," Maya said seriously. "You always make everything better. You make me laugh, you take care of me, and you're so brave." Layla felt the tears well up in her eyes, but she held them back. She hugged Maya tightly, feeling a wave of gratitude and love that filled every inch of her being. In that moment, Layla realized that everything she had been through, every tear, every struggle, every sleepless night had been worth it. For moments like these, for the chance to raise a little girl who saw her as strong, kind, and capable. Maya's words reminded Layla of the journey she had undertaken, the journey from despair to hope, from isolation to community. She had not only found a way to survive, but had found a way to live with purpose. And as Maya's laughter filled the room, Layla knew that this was just the beginning. After breakfast, Layla and Maya took a walk through the park. The same park where Layla had spent so many afternoons feeling overwhelmed and uncertain. Now it was a place of serenity, a place where she could pause and reflect on how far they had come. As they walked hand in hand, Layla's phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from the community grant program. She had been so busy lately, juggling work and being there for Maya, that she hadn't had time to check it. She opened the email and read the words with a smile on her face. Dear Layla, we are excited to inform you that your progress and contributions have inspired many in our community, and we are thrilled to announce that you've been selected as our featured story for this month's newsletter. Your journey from hardship to hope has touched many lives, and we believe that your story will inspire others to keep moving forward, no matter the obstacles they face. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and we are honored to continue supporting you. Layla sat down on a nearby bench, her heart racing. She had never expected anything like this. It wasn't about the recognition, it was about the acknowledgement that her journey had mattered. That the struggles, the victories, the setbacks, and the comebacks had all been part of a bigger picture, a picture that was worth sharing. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past lift from her shoulders. Everything had come full circle. The kindness of a stranger, the support of her community, and the love she had for her daughter had given her everything she needed to turn her life around. As Layla stood up, Maya tugged on her sleeve. Mommy, can we go home? I want to make another paper flower. Layla laughed, the sound bubbling up from deep within her. Of course, sweetie. Let's go. As they walked home together, Layla couldn't help but feel a deep sense of peace. She had come through so much, but now she was on the other side. She had learned that it wasn't about having everything figured out. It was about trusting in the process and knowing that with love, support, and a little bit of faith, everything would work out in the end. And so their journey continued one step at a time. What do you think Layla's future holds? Do you think she and Maya will continue to face new challenges, or has she truly found peace? Share your thoughts in the comments below and reflect on what this story has taught you about resilience, hope, and the power of community. And if this story has inspired you, don't forget to share it with others who could use a reminder that everything can change for the better.